that is absolutely huge because we get to touch that magical spark within us and know that it really is us. We really do hold magic within, and when we go to these places and we experience these things, we get to witness that magic already having happened. It's like looking at an old photograph or something and being like, oh man, I didn't know how powerful I was.
Welcome to the Avoiding Average podcast. I'm Susan Gates, a travel astrologer and transformational soul coach, and this is where we explore the extraordinary journeys of people who've stepped off the beaten path and embrace the unknown. Now, in today's episode, we have Candace returning to speak about her experience with the Soulo Pilgrimage. Now, this is my signature coaching experience that I have offered, and it is basically a bespoke solo journey to a destined place based on your astrocartography. So I'm really excited to share with you her experience. Now let's dive in. Hello and welcome back to the Avoiding Average podcast. Today I have a very special episode because we are welcoming back Candace Evalenko to share her experience about her own little solo pilgrimage that she took not too long ago. So Candace, welcome back.
Thank you.
It's good to see you again.
It's good to be.
Candace was one of the brave volunteers who decided to try this out with me, and she had a unique request in that she wanted to stay relatively close to home, which totally doable. Just based on astrocartography, there are lots of different lines that you can work with, and so I was able to find a place that kind of called to me on her map that was about 4 hours away from you, down in Wilmington, North Carolina, and so. I was kind of drawn to this initially just because the difference in energy that was down there. But what I didn't know when I selected that location was that it was actually pretty prominent in her life. And so, Candace, I would love for you to share a little bit more about, what your initial reaction was to that and your expectations going into it.
Yeah, so when you sent me Wilmington as an option, I was kind of like, that's weird. And also it felt oddly fated, right? Because I had already experienced something with this area without putting my feet on the ground. And I don't know, how far do you want me to talk about kind of what happened, just the crash course?
Yeah.
Yeah. So 5 years ago now, in 2020, I was a nurse working on a COVID unit in a local hospital, on an actual like ventilator step down unit, right? And it was just all around not a very good experience. And at the time, I wanted to just kind of move away from all of the chaos, right? And maybe come back to full-time nursing later. And so I decided to keep a as needed, like 1 to 2 times a month job as a nurse. And I took a segue into advertising, which was totally different. But I'm a multi-talented person, and I thought I can go do that. The opportunity presented itself from a friend or someone I thought that was a friend, and I took it. Well, the company that I signed on with was a large national conglomerate who offered what seemed like the opportunity of a lifetime, and I would just have to put in some sweat equity. And basically they dangled, 6-figure entrepreneurs who really made it here, and like literal micro celebrities whose, names are out there. And it just seemed like too good to be true. But at the time, I didn't have any blinders going on. I just wanted out of where I was. And I trusted the person who recruited me, right? Well, anyways, I fell into a deep, dark net of corruption, right? And I started to uncover things as I went. And as I did, I was too stupid not to ask questions out loud. Basically, I found myself caught in the middle of something that I would never have imagined myself getting caught in. But the headquarters for that company was down in Wilmington, and I never had to step foot in that area for it to actually have an effect on me through my astrocartography map. But it was my Pluto Mercury line, where you were like, hey, I feel like you should go here. And I actually had been doing a ton of work over the past couple of years healing up the wounds that had happened around this, because the experience literally broke me. It broke my trust in myself. It made me question, my faith in a higher power, people, the universe, everything. And it ultimately led to my complete transformation and, an awakening experience that really rerouted my path from the path I thought that I was going to be going down to the path that I'm actually going down. And so it was a huge transformation, and that's what Pluto is all about. And it involved my voice, which is what Mercury is all about. And telling that story was a huge reclamation for me. And when you said, I think you should go to Wilmington, I was like, I knew that it wasn't just going somewhere. It was time to reclaim my story and tell what had happened. So all of this come full circle. You had no idea.
Is that all related to?
Like, I hadn't really, we talked a little about like, oh, something happened in 2020, but nothing, like you had no idea what the story was. And so you were like, here, go to Wilmington. And I'm like, what? I'm gonna go because like I'm finally ready. So we'll get into that whenever you want. But
Yeah. Well, thank you for sharing that little background, and thank you for sharing the line too. I realized I never actually said which line you went to, but yeah, the Pluto Mercury. I don't really even remember why I was so drawn to that, but I think it was just like enough of a difference in the area where you live versus that area to feel a difference. And I know that you're fairly sensitive to energy as well, and so that you would be able to pick up on that.
mm-hmm.
I had no idea about the history of you, and how that related to you, but it was kind of perfect in the sense that it was the right time too, because you had been doing all this work around this company and the experience that you had there. And so I'd love for you to share a little bit more about what that was like for you stepping foot there. I know you went to go visit the actual location of that company, which you'd never been to before, but can you share more about that and what that was like for you?
Yeah. And so as, I was preparing for this, I was telling my husband just kind of like what we were going to be talking about, and he was like, would you say it was cathartic? And I was like, I don't think that's how I would frame it. And we kind of talked about what the definition of cathartic was. And he was like, I feel like any event that really kind of helps you to heal and rewire is what catharsis is. And I'm like, and I think you're right. So basically, what going back there triggered in me was not this time. It wasn't catharsis or closure. It was actually confirmation of exactly how far I had come. Because had you sent me a year or two ago, I would have had a totally different response. And it may have been more cathartic. It may have triggered some traumatic experience. But this time I went and I actually went and I touched the ground. I couldn't go on the property itself because the company actually moved and they are doing work on it. It was bought and sold and everything. And so I was able to stand fairly close, and touch the ground. And I said a few words, just of kind of like reclamation of, I give back all of the energy of this place that I maybe am holding on to. And I call back all of the energy that maybe residually is still tied to this place. And I didn't set expectations. I was not sure what to expect. But I guess I was a little bit surprised that there was less fireworks, but I was relieved for that because it showed me something. And it showed me that this now was a neutral experience for me. And I'm kind of like getting teary-eyed because if you would have told me that I could get to this place 5 years ago when it happened, I don't know if I would have believed you, And so it was a confirmation of how much I had healed and how much my faith had been restored in myself, in spirit, the universe, in the world, like that if I could overcome that, like it means something, you know? It means that not only can I survive whatever comes my way, but I can look back and see how this made me and the path that it set me on that I probably wouldn't have gone down. So overall, it was a really interesting experience. And then we did coaching around it, right? While I was there. And I had these odd childhood memories come up, right? And we had to like work through why is all this childhood memory nostalgia coming up? So like none of it was negative. It was all positive. Like I had a really positive experience, which I feel like is out of the norm for somebody who goes to their Pluto Mercury line. But I think that the reason is because I had already done so much healing work in this area. And most people, the first time they go, it has to trigger that healing. And so trigger, ow. But once you've done the work, it's like you get to rise up from that.
Yeah, and I think that was a really surprising part of it too, that even I wasn't really expecting to. Like I think after I had first mentioned the location and you kind of gave me a little bit of backstory, I was like, oh, okay, so this will be an interesting trip for sure. But I didn't even see any of the childhood memories coming up. And I think when we were talking about that and coaching through it and looking at like, the transits and everything that was going on, it kind of made sense just because your Pluto did tie to a lot of your fourth house placements, which relates to nostalgia and childhood and your upbringing and everything like that. And so it was kind of like this. I mean, you can describe it too, but like from the way that I saw it, it was like, you're able to heal this part of you that was kind of holding you back. And now you're able to see the good things that also come from the connection that you have to Pluto.
Exactly. Yeah, and it came full circle back to my childhood, and that was the next thing I went, and I went shark tooth hounding
Yeah.
not too far away from that location, and just went and had a blast doing feeding my inner child looking for shark's teeth.
Yeah. I love that so much that you were able to do something fun. But I think when a lot of people think about, yeah, well, when you think about like, a spiritual journey or pilgrimage or something like that, you rarely think about the fun that you could have there too. You just think about, healing and working through trauma or challenges or things like that. But there's also like the benefits of traveling that, you get to go and experience something new that you normally wouldn't. And I think that's so important and such an amazing thing that you were able to do too.
Yeah. Yeah, and like it just popped into my head something that I had said to you while we were coaching through it was that I used to always wait for the other shoe to drop, and what I found through this experience was that confirmation that I don't live my life like that anymore. A full circle transformation had happened. I don't sit around wondering when it's all going to fall apart. I just let I have the pronoia where, I'm like, maybe the universe is conspiring in my favor even when the things don't feel good. Like,
Yes, I had never heard of that word pronoia up until about a year or two ago, and then like when I first heard about it, I was like, oh, I kind of like that. I'm gonna stick with
I love it.
that.
It's one of my favorite things now. I'm like, oh,
Yes, it's always conspiring in your favor,
yeah.
always.
Yeah, exactly. It's hard to believe it in the moment when things are uncomfortable. Like,
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah. Um, so I know that you had documented part of your trip there with like vlogging, and then you also posted YouTube videos about that. So were you planning on doing any of this prior to the trip as far as speaking about your experience directly with that company?
so I'd had a very interesting experience, which is really interesting that we're now talking about this today because I didn't know it was going to come up. But I was
Okay.
actually scripting a video for today about and talking about kind of like activation and what that is and what mine kind of looked like. And now I had like a activation this year that was like, okay, now move, move, move. And I like stepped into my mission, right? But about a year prior to this, I was kind of already getting communication from spirit and like a pre-activation that was like, hey, you need to work on these things. And I had to start like rapidly. It was like spirit came in and like started like sweeping house and like healing up stuff, like sewing up wounds and stuff. And like I had to stop vaping and like cut addictions. And I was warned that I was going to be ending a relationship that was really important to me, that I was like, no, I don't think I'm going to be doing that. And then I ended up doing it. But the thing with that was that this experience with Wilmington was one of those things that came up to really be processed and healed, and kind of get closed up. But in that, I remember asking spirit, because they were like, you're going to step into a spiritual career in 2025. And I was like, okay, like what?
I mean, yeah.
That.
Yeah.
And, like no further, but I knew that it had something to do with speaking. And I wondered, like if this experience was something that I was meant to speak about. And I remember asking spirit, like one day there was multiple things that came up and I was like, all right, you know what? Why don't you give me this sign for this sign for that, this sign for this, right? And I got the sign like within an hour, that was like, you will talk about it, but it's going to be later. Right. And so I knew that it would come up later and I didn't know how or in what way, but I established with spirit that the time that I'm supposed to talk about this, I would see a white dove. Now I live in an area we don't have white doves. I was like, you're going to send me a white dove, like no joke. And no shit, like before, like as we were kind of planning it out, I saw a white dove like in my area in the wild, because like I had seen them at a bird sanctuary before this, but this one was out in the wild. And I was like, okay,
There's your sign.
freaky. Like, like you ask God or the universe for signs, but then like when you get them, you're like, I did not expect that to happen.
Yeah.
I was just going to do this thing anyways. But yeah, no, I got that. And so I wasn't planning on making it a thing now. But everything fell into place with you and like with me starting this business. Like I really thought I would just kind of like talk about it down the line, but it all just converged into this point. And like nothing has come of it other than what's happened in me. The fact that I had the courage to make this and put it out in the universe. And at some point, I'm sure that it'll trickle out, to people who know me. Cause like I've kind of it's not that I've kept it quiet. I just haven't like told anybody like, hey, I'm doing this thing and you should go watch it, because it's very niche. And, it's just like, I'm not going to go tell everybody who isn't associated with my niche, but anyway, but yeah, so I wasn't planning on it. You said some things, spirit said some things, and then I did.
Divine timing, right?
Uh-huh.
That's amazing. So how did that feel then to actually record those videos and put it out into the world?
It felt kind of like a badass, I'm just like, like you have the picture of like a vigilante who like maybe they were like, I've been watching this show, Blindside. Have you ever seen it? Okay, so this woman is like tattooed from head to toe, and then her memory is erased, and she gets sent to the FBI. And so basically, they're following the clues in her tattoo of things that'll happen. Well, as a child, it looks like she was taken, and she was basically made into a weapon, right? Now, I haven't gotten to any part where she's like gone back and really done this, but take for instance, like the things you've seen of like, okay, so somebody gets kidnapped and they have these things happen to them, and then they become a weapon and they go back and they take back what was theirs and get the bad guys and go on to, I don't know, be the hero of their life.
Yeah.
That's kind of how it felt. Is like, I'm taking back this thing that you stole from me at a point in time. And I'm saying to the universe and, you, that I'm not scared anymore. You wanted me to be quiet. You wanted me to be scared. I refuse. and I will in fact go do whatever the fuck I want. Pardon my French. I like F-bombs.
We'll throw an explicit filter on there. Yeah, that's amazing. I think once you had kind of told me, I guess, the history behind the location, I was like, oh, this is going to be like a nice reclamation of power for her. Just because I think people think of Pluto as a planet of destruction in a sense, and in a way, it did, kind of destroy your old life, right? But it also created this new you, or really uncovered this real you. And so, yeah, I was really happy to hear that you're ready to share that story, and you're ready to let people know. I guess that no one to be scared. No one to be scared of that.
And that's my whole mission, is like we can't make progress if we're not willing to tear down the crappy building that we have in this life and make something new out of it. Like transformation is terrifying. Breaking parts of ourselves and not knowing what's going to be replaced in is scary and it's painful. But like the picture of what happens when a caterpillar cocoons, right? Is they go in and they become like complete mush, right? And if you tried to get inside the psyche of what that might be for a caterpillar, I would imagine that it's very scary. You're like, oh my gosh, I went into this hiding place and now I'm melting. But then they break out of this cocoon, which I'm sure is quite difficult as well, only to sprout wings and become these beautiful, free creatures. And we all have that within us. But so many miss it because they're too afraid to get in the cocoon.
I love when we have these real examples from nature of transformation, and how it can really relate to the challenges that we go through in this process. I mean, I know we talked about it in the last podcast episode about the challenges that are associated with spiritual awakening and everything like that, but really, like, once you're stepping into your power, that's hard as well too.
Yeah.
So I love that metaphor, I guess, for that. So going forward then, like, how are you feeling about all this, and what would you say to anybody else who may be contemplating doing something like this?
Well, you happen to be an astrocartographer who has the ability to go into Akashic records, which I feel like is extremely helpful in this case because you can check, is it time? Is this the right path? Right? And I think that that's the main thing, is partnering with spirit. And honestly, I feel like, okay, if you're going to do it, even if you didn't check, like, it's probably meant to happen now. But all those things converge into our highest and greatest good. But I think that partnering with spirit is the most important thing that you can do if you're going to delve into a transformational experience. And I would say that, yeah, just check in. Am I ready? Am I ready? And knowing, okay, are these the lines that I'm willing to go and visit? Am I willing to go through whatever might come up? And do I trust that the outcome is going to be greater than any kind of discomfort that I might feel? Because I think that had I been sent on this journey without already having prior experience with it, it might have been a more painful experience, but I think it would have still been incredibly worth it, because ultimately 5 years ago, this place sparked a very painful transformation in me, and it was lasting. And I didn't even have to set foot in that area. Trust and partner with the universe and spirit. Like,
Yeah. I don't know if that's something that I necessarily do a good job of communicating, is that I will always take into consideration, people's preferences, but ultimately a lot of it ends up being, what feels intuitively right
Yeah,
based
and I
on
think
the
that when
energy.
it is
So,
intuitively right is there's something there that's meant to come up.
mhm.
And it doesn't always it's nothing to fear, like mine. Like, hey, guess what? You already dealt with this. Congratulations. Like, oh my gosh, it's like getting a medal later and you're like, I didn't even know. Like,
Yeah, yeah. No, I think that's a great confirmation too, though, because one of the other folks that also did this the same week that you were there, it was a similar sort of thing where they kind of worked on it, still were a little unsure, but it was more of a confirmation of, yes, this lives within me, and this is something that I can access, um, as opposed to being like a big, I don't know, traumatic, cathartic event or things like that. So,
and I feel like that is absolutely huge because we get to touch that magical spark within us and know that it really is us. Like we really do hold magic within, and when we go to these places and we experience these things on the flip side, we get to witness that magic already having happened. It's like looking at an old photograph or something and being like, oh man, I didn't know how powerful I was.
I love that. And ultimately, I think that is kind of my mission too, right? Is to help people feel more empowered, not only to be their authentic selves, but also just knowing that you have all of this within you. It's not some external thing that you have to necessarily chase, but it's more of like that reminder and confirmation that you already have it within you and you can access it whenever. Um, so thank you so much for taking this opportunity up. I think this is something that I've always kind of been really excited about, and so I'm glad to see that it was helpful for you and that you enjoyed your experience.
Yeah, no, it's my pleasure. I was really grateful to be given this opportunity. And that's one of the other things, that I was scripting out today was just how many. So all of these bad things, were put in place to wreck me and, transform me. But also all of these amazing people were put in my path to support and to help me uncover the layers, that led to the healing and the empowerment and things like that. And so, yeah, no, you've been part of that journey and I'm really grateful. So thanks.
Well, um, any last words that you wanted to share about the experience or anything like that, before we wrap up?
Um, we talked about how I did put the video if anyone wants to
Mm-hmm.
actually hear what happened in that company and everything, the whole story of it. I didn't end up doing like a full vlog or anything. I just kind of went and talked about the experience and like the astrocartography and everything that went through. But it goes into that full story if anybody's interested. And that is on my YouTube channel. You can search at The Fire Unleashed for the channel itself. And the video is called Inside the Company That Tried to Break Me and Why I Had to Go Back. So that's it.
Well, Candace, thank you so much for coming out here, sharing your story. I appreciate you doing this for yourself, really. Like I love that, you've been really putting yourself out there a lot lately, and I'm really proud of you for just doing that, because it's scary. It's so scary to do that, especially if you've been so used to it. But yeah, thank you so much.
You are very welcome. That's my pleasure.
All right, and there you have it, folks. If you're interested in getting in contact with Candace, I will leave her contact information in the show notes, as well as the link to that YouTube episode if you want to check it out. And if you are interested in doing your own solo pilgrimage, I will link the application in the show notes as well. Right now, I'm doing an application basis just to make sure that we're a right fit, and we can see where the universe wants to take you and how else you can step into your own power. If you like this episode, please feel free to like, share, subscribe, add in the comments what your thoughts are. If there's anywhere that you've been wanting to go or been feeling called to go, I think that's usually a good sign as well. But that's all for today, and I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day.